Good evening, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Let's learn QA. And in this video, I will be covering part 3 of the interview questions for Playwright with TypeScript. So I have already covered part 1 and part 2 in this particular series, and I have covered already 10 questions, that is 20 questions already in the part 1 and part 2. So today I will be covering part 3 with the more questions that can help you during the Playwright with TypeScript interview, and I will be covering 10 more questions over here. And this request I am covering based on a, request from one of the viewer. Let me mention his name over here because it's really good to see comments from your side, and when you are like actually asking for the new videos for a specific topic. So let me go through that and let me mention his name. So his name is Muhammad Imtiaz Khan. Let me click over here. So he has requested this for the part 2. He has viewed the part 2 of the interview question and then requested that part 3, please, sir. So based on the Imtiaz Khan's request, I am covering this part 3 over here. And thank you, Imtiaz, for your valuable comments, valuable inputs. And I will be requesting every other viewers, if they want to like cover a particular topic or particular thing you want to cover, I will be taking it from here. So thank you very much. And before starting the video, I would request please support my channel by your views, your likes, your comments, and your subscribe. So let us start with the questions over here. So the first question that I will be covering over here, that is difference between hooks and fixture in Playwright. So they can be asking the difference between the two because they are like they are always supporting our tests but in a different way. So let us see how is the it works and what is the difference. So when we talk about hooks, actually hooks are used to for setup and cleanup activities like launching the browser, open URL, logging, clean test data, or screenshot after the failure. So these are like some linear tasks that you want to perform. So that will be handled using the hooks, right? And on the other hand, fixtures are like they are for the dependency injection and resource sharing. So what happens in the fixture, you will create object is created, and then object is passed to the test. But on the other hand, nothing happens like that, and we do not create any kind of objects. We just write linear codes in the hooks, and they will be like executing before and after based on the hooks that we have used. So that is the one thing. Now next point of the difference between the two, for the hooks, the scope of hooks is only the test file or the describe block. So the it is only limited to a specific test file or specific block. This is I'm talking about the hooks. But if we talk about the dependency, sorry, the fixture, the scope of the fixture can be used in entire project or in the selected test. So fixture has a wider scope than the hooks, right? So that is another difference between the two. Now the third one is if you talk about hooks, it always runs for every test in the file and the describe block. So if you have mentioned hooks in your test, it will always run before your test and based on the hooks you have used. But on the fixture, it will only runs if the test explicitly requests it and as an argument. So it is not mandatory that fixture will always be working. It will depend upon if you request it in your test, right? But if we talk about the hooks, it will always run because they are like they are prefix things and they will always be running before and after your test. So that is the difference between the hooks and fixture over here. So let us go to the next question. Again, there is a difference. This question is from the not Playwright. It is from the TypeScript concept. And one of the questions that they are asking over here, explain difference between any and unknown types in TypeScript. So TypeScript is basically to deal with the types, right? To provide the type safety. But there are some special types available, and any and unknown are those two special types. So you should be able to understand the difference between the two, and it is a common interview question. So what happens in any disables type checking when you declare a variable as any, then what happens? TypeScript does not perform any type checking. Then type checking is stopped by the TypeScript because its type is what? Any. And in that case, no error will be shown during the compile time, rather it will be shown on the runtime. So basically, any will disable the type checking, because now type checking is disabled, so it will let you perform any actions. So you will not be able to see anything during the compile, only it will show the errors on the runtime only. On the other hand, unknown type is there which enforce you. What is the meaning of unknown? That what will happen? Unknown type enforce type checking before use. So what happens when use unknown? Type is not known at that time. So TypeScript will enforce you to check type of variable before using it. Suppose you have declared a variable with the type unknown. If you want to use that variable in your program, before using that variable, you have to ensure that you will check its type before using it. So that is the difference between the any and unknown. If you will be having any question, any doubt, please feel free in the comments. Write into the comments and I will be answering each and every one question from your comments. So next question that is there, difference between locator and get by role and which is better. So there are the different like locator strategies available in the Playwright. That is the locator and the get by role method is there. So now both locator and get by role return a locator object, but they locate elements in different ways. So what happens in locator? Let us see. Locator is the most generic locator in the Playwright. It can use CSS selector, XPath, text selector, ID, or class. So this is how the locator will be using these things to locate a particular element. For example, await page dot locator. We are using locator method over here and we are passing XPath over here. You can see. And for the ID, we are using hash over here. Method is locator. So this is how the locator is used. On the other hand, getByRole uses the accessibility tree, not just the HTML structure. So getByRole is a bit advanced in the sense that it will be using the accessibility of the tree, not the HTML structure. So let us see what happens in the getByRole. So suppose you have an element that is button login. This is the HTML available. This is the on the page. So Playwright will understand this as this particular element with the role button and its name it will be considering as login. So you can write, how will you write this XPath over, sorry, the locator over here, await page dot get by role. And get by role, what you will mention, it is the button, the role is button, and name is login. So this is how you will be using get by role over here. This is the locator. So in that case, you will see you are not using any CSS selector or nothing else is needed. Hence, get by role is better. This is a better one. This is the recommended one, right? So now the question arises, next question, why get by role is better? You have to give some example why it is better. So you can give it an example of an HTML. Suppose your HTML changes. Suppose we have an HTML. This is the existing HTML. We have a button with the class btn blue, and this is the ending button tag. So this is the existing element, right? With the class blue, right? Now suppose it will change, it has changed from this to the class has been changed from btn blue to btn red. So developer has changed this class. Suppose you are using locator to locate the element. So if your locator is like that, page dot locator dot blue, it means you are locating your element based on the class, right? Because what is that we have just learned, that locator uses what, class ID and other things. So here what is happening, you are using locator based on the class, but developer has changed the class from blue to red. So what will happen, this test will fail because the class has changed. So its dependency on is on the class, right, not on the, so it will make your test as a fragile over here. But if the same, for the same thing, you will be using get by role. So page dot get by role button and name is equal to login. So now you can see the get by role locator is dependent on the role and the name of the element. So it is not dependent on the class attribute, can you say? So if you change it from blue to red or to any other class, the get by role locator will always be working. So that is why it is better. So you can see it will still work because the role and accessible name have not changed. So it will only be break when the name of the element will be changed. Otherwise, it will not be break. Right. So this is the difference between a role and the locator. So now next question, that can be another cross question. Can get by role locate every element? So you cannot just say yes for this question. The answer should be like no. It is, although get by role can be covering most of the element, but it cannot cover every element. So what are the elements that cannot be covered over here? So mainly it is intended for elements with meaningful accessibility roles such as buttons, links, checkboxes, radio button, text boxes, combo boxes, menus, tabs, dialog, and headings. But for elements like generic div or span with no useful rule, get by role may not be appropriate. So it is a tricky question that they can ask you. Can it be used for all the elements? But no, some element which are generic with no useful role, they are not appropriate with the get by role. Right. So this is the answer over here. So next question number 6 are related to assertion. What are web first assertions in Playwright? So web first assertions are Playwright's built-in assertions that automatically wait for the expected condition to become true before failing the test. So these are the inbuilt assertions. So actually what happens, they have an inbuilt waiting mechanism like incorporated within them. So that will help us to write our test, a robust test over here, right? So now instead of checking if what happens in the web first assertion, that instead of checking the UI immediately, Playwright keeps retrying the assertion until. So web first assertion is not like traditional assertion they where it Playwright will be checking the result immediately. No, rather, Playwright will keep retrying the assertion until what? Until the assertion passes or the timeout is reached. And what is the default timeout for the assertions? 5 seconds by default for the assertions are there. So let us understand it with the scenario. So what will happen? This will make test more reliable when page is updated async. Now, one example can be, suppose you have just performed login and after the login, you will be redirected to the dashboard page. So what you will be doing over here, how you will write your assertion after performing the login to check whether your page has a title dashboard. So this is how you will write your web first assertion. Await expect page to have title. To have title is a web first assertion, right? So it is checking for the page title. Now, suppose, let us say the dashboard will be taking 3 seconds, correct? After the login, dashboard will be appearing after the 3 seconds. 3 seconds it will take. So, because we have used assertion over here and that assertion is a web first assertion, so internally how it will work, on the 0 second title will be login, but it will retry after 500 millisecond. It will retry, title is not still there, after another 500 millisecond means after 1 second it will retry, then 1.5 seconds, 2 second, 2.5 second, it will keep on retrying after every 500 millisecond. And then after 3 seconds, when the title will appear, it will become title dashboard, sorry. Now it will pass the assertion because 5 seconds is the time and the elements title become available after the 3 seconds. But it, what you can see internally, that it is retrying again and again after 500 milliseconds. So these are the web first assertion. They are inbuilt assertion that will automatically wait for the expected condition to be true. So what happens in over there, that you don't need to write any waiting logic yourself. It is inbuilt within the assertion itself. So these are the web first insertion. So now question number 7 from the TypeScript. Explain map filter and reduce method of an array with an example. So you have to explain these three methods. These are the special methods of an array. So they can ask you to explain these methods with example. So first, the map method. Map method, what happens in map method? Apply common operation on each element of an array and returns a new array. So map method, if you want to perform a common operation for all elements of an array, then map method is used. In map method, what happens? Original array is unchanged and new array is returned. For example, we can take a real world example that suppose we have a array prices which have different prices 1000, 2000, 3000, and we want to apply 18% GST to all of these prices. So what will be using over here? We will be using map method over, because we want to apply a common operation on all the elements. So map method will be used, right? And then next method is the filter method. Filter method, what is the role of filter method? Filters element based on a condition and return a new array. Suppose we have an array and we want to filter some elements from that array based on a certain condition. Then in that case, filter method will be used for an array. For example, we have the array where the marks of the students are like taken over here, stored over here, and we want only students eligible for placement. And what is the condition? Marks should be greater than 60. So in that case, what we can use? We can use the filter method, and it will filter only those elements which are greater than 60 in that case. So that is how the filter method will work. And the third method is the reduce method. Reduce method reduces the entire array into a single value, right? So in array we have multiple elements available. Now reduce will make it as a single value. For example, where you will be using it, suppose we have to calculate the sum of numbers of an array. So sum of numbers of an array, we have three different elements, but the sum will be a single value. So in that case, we will be using the reduce method. We will reduce this method to a single value, which will represent the sum of the elements of the array. So this is the scenario for reduce method. Now, question number 8 from Playwright. How to automatically rerun, retry the failed test in Playwright. So it is very likely that some tests can be failed and we want to retry them, right? So how can we do it in Playwright? That is very easy in Playwright. It can be done. It has to be done by setting one configuration from playwright.config.ts file. In a Playwright project, we have one configuration file which is playwright.config.ts, and from this file there is one configuration with the name retries. From the retries, we can set the value, that is the process.env.ci. So that is the first value which represents the value for the CI environment. And second value we can use, that is for local retry. So in that case, for this particular update, what it will do, it will use retry once on the local system, and on the CI/CD pipeline it will be retrying for the two times. So this is how we can like we can set the values for automatic rerun and retry for the failed test. So now next question is about screenshots. Question number 9, how to capture screenshots automatically. So when you will be running your test, you want that some test cases that too automatically. We do not want to write any code. However, we can write some code to take the screenshot, but we can also be done automatically. How? Screenshots option in the playwright.config.ts file. There is one more configuration in the configuration file which is playwright.config.ts. The configuration name is screenshot. Screenshot option in the config file controls the when the screenshots are captured automatically during the testing. So this is the very short answer for that. Now the core cross question can be there. What are the different options available for screenshot in config.ts? Because config screenshot option can be used, but what are the different options available for that? So in screenshot configuration, you can have the option like off. In case of off, no screenshot are accept captured during the test execution automatically. One thing. There is another option screenshot on. It will capture screenshot for every test. Second, then next option is available only on failure. So it will capture the screenshot only when test fails. And the last option is there on first failure. That is the option which will help us during the retry. If you want to retry your failed test, so that is the on first failure. So it will capture screenshot only for the first failure of the test, right? So it will suppose you have a retry for 2 times, so total test will be running 3 times, but it will capture screenshot only once. Only screenshot from the attempt one is captured. So these are the different options available for the screenshot that we can manage through the screen playwright.config.ts file. So these are the 10 questions that I found that are frequently asked and it can help you during your interview. So I hope you have liked this video. Please, I would request, please, if you want more video like that, please do write in your comments and please support my channel and I will be covering more topics based on your request in the upcoming. So thank you very much and see you in the next video.